Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Nate.
And I'm Mike. What are we smoking today, Nate?
Well, it's been a week and I'm still gagging on that untimely demise. We are not smoking that, thank God. We are smoking a Tatiana Nightcap, which smells much better than the untimely demise.
Dude, this smells like hot chocolate with marshmallows in it.
Doesn't it? It does. It really does. It brings me back camping, like campfire. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to drink some hot chocolate and marshmallows.
Am I imagining this? It smells like it smells incredible.
Yeah, well, we had a good experience with the first one that we smoked, the Tatiana Waking Dream, right? We had a pretty good experience.
Yes, we did. And I will tell you that if this is as good as it smells, I might be stocking up on some Tatiana soon for the rest of it.
Well, hopefully you don't get as much debris from this one as you got from the last one.
Yeah, I was a little more conscious about trying to make a small cut, not the whole width of the cigar.
Sure.
So I'm like trying to, make a smaller cut and see if that makes a difference.
Okay. The cap is almost so sweet that it stings. Yeah, the when I cut it just now, it was, you get a real nice crisp cut with cigars. And this one was like spongy.
This is a spongy ass cigar for me.
Yeah, okay.
It's incredible.
Well, we're on the same thing then. Maybe they just soaked it in so much fucking sugar water that
it's quite possible that it doesn't even need humidification. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I put all of these because we've got 27 of these Tatianas, and they're all in their own little humidor jar. So
right, yeah, and I have mine in a jar also.
Sure. I am pairing mine with a Lagunitas, the Beast of Both Worlds, which is a bi-coastal IPA. So I'm joining the DEI train. It's a bi-coastal IPA. It doesn't identify as East or West. It's both.
I was so going to do that if you didn't. Yeah. And I'm pairing mine with a shocking beer that many of you have never heard of, but I'm going to expose it today for the very first time.
Is it Guinness?
Guinness Draft, yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to light this thing up. My end is kind of like smushed, but I'm sure it'll light just fine.
So I'm getting the chocolate, the cacao.
Me too.
For sure.
Yes.
And very sweet. I like it. I know I said this last time, but it does taste exactly like a well-soaked, cased pipe tobacco wrapped in a cigar leaf, which I think is what it is.
It probably
It tastes like what it is. Yeah.
We might have to do some more research on these before we keep going in the series, but I'm not disliking them.
No. I like them just fine. I think that they're all going to be like this now that I've had to.
I think they're perfectly serviceable. I think that doing more of these, we'll find the ones that we like best, and they might be different. You might like this one more than whatever one I end up liking, or who knows, But they're relatively cheap, pretty cheap, dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap.
So it's one of those things where it's like
than a gas station cigar.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of want to hesitate calling these like a guilty pleasure, but this is kind of like if you're not a fan of cheroos, maybe, and you want something that has flavor, I guess.
Something like this would be great for a fishing trip where you're going to smoke 2 or 3 cigars in a day. And potentially. And this is like a nice break from your edges. If I'm going to go on a cigar trip, I'm going to bring some cheroos. I'm going to bring something like an edge. Maybe a couple darker cigars like Licorias or like Cane Fs. And then something like this would be nice to add in. Or flathead, yep. And then something like this would be nice to add for like a little break. If I'm going fishing for a week or something, where I'm going to have 10 cigars through a week.
Well, I'm thinking these might even be nice for kind of like a person's first cigar or something. If you have somebody who's not a cigar smoker per se, or maybe they like vaping. Like this is a good kind of segue from vaping to some cigars because they're very flavorful.
Yeah, it does have that nice, smooth, like burley tobacco, pipe tobacco kind of taste.
Yep.
With like a very strong casing.
Yes.
And I like them. Like I think that we have one more on the schedule. I'm not sure we need to smoke anymore, to be honest with you.
Well, we should smoke all of them that we got, I guess.
Well, we have a lot. I think that they're all going to be the same thing. We could
probably
try,
so. I think we should sprinkle them throughout because I don't really want, season 4 to be the Tatiana season.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Tatiana, Nate.
No, I never said there was. But, a little more variety than, one cigar company that put out 50 different leaf flavored cigars.
I wanted to get enough in a row to where we had a good idea of what they were going to be.
Yeah, good.
And that way we could early recommend, which I'm going to wait until the end of this cigar. We have one more, I think a vanilla one on the schedule.
Yeah.
But I think I could probably recommend buying them. Like, comfortably say, like, if you want this thing,
yep,
I think that it's a recommend for sure.
Yes.
But what are we talking about today, Nate?
Well, let me tell you the story of how I came across this topic, because it might surprise you, or it might not. So I know we talked about this, Mike. I don't remember if we talked about this in the future or if we talked about it off air, but we recently got a brand new air conditioner unit.
Yes, I believe that we talked about it in the future.
Yes. I just couldn't remember if it was in the future off air or in the future on air. But the listener, can decide when the future happens, which is not now. It's not today. It will be a little bit from now. But we got a new AC a couple weeks ago, and we had a couple different quotes. And both people that came in, both sales reps that came in, went down and looked at our mechanical room, which, Mike, you've seen. It is very, very cramped and small. There's not a whole lot of room to maneuver anything. And so both of them looked at it and said, well, I'm going to have to request a skinny tech. And I thought, well, if I said that at my work, I'd be down at HR talking about body positivity and things like that. But here, like, it's different because you need to be, like, I can't fit back there. I can't fit back there. I can fit most of the way back there, but I can't fit all the way back there. So not just skinny, but small. Like, I'm 6'6", so I can't fit back there all the way. I just can't do it. So that got me thinking about beauty standards. Huh? Because the text that came out, boy, were they gorgeous.
I'm guessing they were. But
no, it really got me thinking because in high school, and I've got all these notes and I did all this research. But in high school, we had to do a reading from Shakespeare's *Midsummer Night's Dream*. And so, being a film guy, even then in high school, I did a film version, and unlike Snow White, I cast accurate actors. So the one is the sought-after female of the time, of Shakespeare's time, who was pale-skinned, because that meant they weren't working outside. They weren't a laborer. They came from some kind of wealth. And there was the other who was tanned, which meant that they were a worker. They were outside and whatnot. And at the time, the pale woman was the ideal. And of course, in our society, if the woman is pale, it's typically not seen societally as the most desirable. You want someone tan, bronzed, or whatever, right?
Well, yeah, it's the inverse of that time, because somebody who's tan has the leisure time to be outside in the sun with no clothes on.
And that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, let's go through this and let's figure out what's going on with all the beauty standards.
There we go.
Does that sound good to you, Mike? Are you very familiar with this topic?
I mean, I'm passingly familiar as like a person that was on the internet, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, as a beautiful man in 2025.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I know that pale skin is still a beauty standard in much of the world, for similar reasons as has been traditional in European society. So
yes.
So
we got this broken down by women and men. So I figured I'd just start with women, and we'll go through that timeline, and then we'll switch over to men and do that timeline. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Sweet. We're going to start a little bit ago, 25,000 BCE, which is before Common Era, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think so.
When did the Common Era start, Mike? Zero? Hey, what do you know? What do you know? I feel like a genius over here. I'm hoping in the men's section, genius is sexy, but we'll see. All right, 25,000 BCE. We have an actual documented record of beauty standards, and that is the Venus of Willendorf. Are you familiar with this statue, Mike?
I am.
Okay, so this is a very heavily idealized standard of beauty, and it's the Paleolithic or the very old Stone Age. And it's interesting because the face is gone. There's no face whatsoever. I mean, there's like a head, but there's not really a face. So that wasn't really a thing for them. And the arms are really small and kind of not there. And it wasn't meant to be kind of a true representation in a medical sense, right? Like they're not trying to, based on the proportions of everything on the statue, it was, I don't know, man. Do you remember when you learned to draw like a naked woman in like middle school or something? And it's
very primitive. Yeah.
Very primitive and rudimentary. That's basically what this is. Except whereas in middle school, we didn't draw it this way. At least I didn't. So the breasts are crazy big and there's big thighs, a big stomach, and like the genitals, like the labia are huge. And so like they calls it a fertility sculpture. So it really, I don't know that it goes beyond that in terms of, compared to the Mona Lisa. It's like the exact opposite of the Mona Lisa. But again, this is 25,000 BCE. And to them, procreation, reproduction, that was their beauty ideal. I've read lots of things on the ideal ratio for women of, bust, hips, and waist or whatever. Or I don't know what it is, but you would know, 4chan.
Yeah. There's like the, 36, 22, 36 or some shit. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. He's accessing the old data banks here.
Yeah, I'm trying to access it. I know there's a series of numbers.
It's almost like the Fibonacci sequence or whatever, right?
Yeah. It's the golden ratio. It's like supposed to be a Marilyn Monroe, I think, is what they claim, is that's what it's based on. Internet claim,
Sure. Yeah. So it's got to be true.
Got to be.
Okay. So we're gonna skip ahead a bit, and we're gonna go to 1,500 BCE, and this is ancient Egypt. And surprisingly, in ancient Egypt, men and women were in many ways seen as equals, but not when it came to beauty. And if you've seen the historical documents, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, you would know. They expected men to have kind of reddish-brown skin tone, and they wanted the women's complexion to be like light golden tan. So, you're near the sun. You're like the LaCroix of being tanned. You were stored somewhere near the sun, but not in direct sun. They wanted the men to be angular bodies with broad shoulders, and the women's body was more desirable if it was soft and rounded. And they wanted kind of a pronounced stomach and a plump, slightly sagging butt were greatly admired. And of course, most people know the Egyptians wrote a lot of things down in pictographs, or they're not pictographs, it's hieroglyphs. But they're kind of like pictographs, right?
Very similar.
They made the first emojis.
Yes, they did.
Oversimplification, but also not that far off. So they weren't as focused on the reproductive organs as, well, I can't really do math, but that's, 24-ish thousand years earlier. Then we're going to 300 BCE, and that is ancient Greece. And they had Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. She has distinct stomach rolls as she crouches, which I know is a big thing on Instagram these days. Some people try and hide them, and then some Instagrammers are like, nope, I'm going no filter, no suck, and here's all my stomach rolls and everything. But she was plump and had wide hips and small breasts, and that was important in Greek culture. And back then, women would wear makeup, but it was lead, so you know where that goes. And blondes and redheads in ancient Greek society were considered to be especially beautiful. So women would sometimes bleach their hair with vinegar, which coincidentally often led to hair loss. They wanted a prominent nose and small lips in terms of women in that sense. So I don't know what that says for the Kardashians.
Well, that's probably what they looked like originally.
Yes, when they were originally dug up. But since being reanimated, they decided to change some things. All right, then we're going to 800 AD, the Vikings. And the Vikings have a pretty good reputation for pillaging, murdering, and raping. But compared to the rest of the people at the time, they were quite a bit more civilized than most people realize. Women in Scandinavia had many rights, the rights to own land. They were able to request a divorce, and they had the right to join men on raids. The Vikings also valued personal care more than most people of the time, and I've seen some pretty humorous memes about, perfumed Vikings. Most Europeans of the era never bathed a day in their lives. Viking women often bathed once a week, being the most frequent. and they took pride in maintaining long and shiny hair. Women were admired for having bright white arms, which may have been part of their obsession of being as clean as possible, since most cultures of the time viewed dark skin as a sign of poverty or poor hygiene. So it wasn't so much being in the sun, but it was more like the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like digging around in muck.
Right. That was Viking hygiene is well documented, where the Vikings would always bring combs and cleaning. Part of their kit was hygiene products, which was apparently unique at the time.
Yes. So that was 800 AD. We're going to go to 1400. We're taking leaps, but so far I don't think we're taking as drastic leaps as anything in the Dune series.
No.
I was going to tell you, Mike, for our last episode, I have a copy of Agenda 3020, but linguistic drift has made it impossible for me to decipher, so not enough for an episode.
Oh, my.
Right.
Do you want to do a cigar check?
Yeah, sure.
I'm halfway, for sure.
Okay, I'm not quite there, but I've been the one talking.
Yep. I'm trying to slow down. I think it's great. It's still got the cocoa, and it's still sweet. I mean, it's what it is, right? Yep. It's consistent. It's not getting sour.
Yep. I'm going to say that I like this. I'm also going to say that I have a slight aversion to the manufactured chocolate, the fake chocolate taste that you find a lot in beer, where you get like a chocolate porter or a chocolate stout or something. I have kind of an aversion to that, and this is giving me those vibes. So
very much so.
If you like that kind of chocolate stout or chocolate porter, you're going to like this. This is going to be just right up your alley. I have an aversion to that. I got some bad, I probably talked about this, but I got some bad food poisoning from a peanut butter chocolate stout. And it's been difficult for me to get back into it even years now beyond. And I'm just not a huge fan of that kind of artificial chocolate flavor. So, but again, it's not giving me crazy vibes where I'm having like Nam flashbacks, but I'm just not a fan of that flavor. I like this cigar so far. I'm just wanting to disclose my personal preference against the artificial chocolate.
Right, yeah. You're acknowledging that. And one thing that's important to remember with the chocolate in the cigars is that you got to smoke them slow. Otherwise, it gets burnt. Bad. So
just like if you're heating up milk on a stovetop for your hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Do it slowly. All right. 1400s. During the Renaissance, large foreheads were thought to be a sign of great beauty. Blonde hair was all the rage, but women would often pluck their hairlines back and thin their eyebrows to accentuate their foreheads, to make them look bigger. Pear-shaped women were thought to be the most beautiful, and women were proud of their curvy hips and thighs, but they'd flatten their chests with tightly bound corsets. So big thighs,
talk about Rubens,
big rumps, and flat chests.
Yep, some big booty Judies in Renaissance era Italy.
Yes. Well, they even had those wire undercarriage things for their dresses.
Yep.
But I don't know if that was then or if that was a little bit later. But we'll get there.
I'm sure that it started there. I don't know where it started. I know that was definitely a style.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you're going to talk about.
Yes. Possibly. This is Nate did all the research, but maybe didn't do as much pre-reading as he should have beforehand. But I have a summary page printed out, and then I've got all my notes, so it's all good. It's not a bad thing. It's just I can't know exactly where we're going because I was like, man, you got me with the statue of Wallendorf or whatever the fuck. Willendorf. How am I going to get through this? I'm already like crazy aroused with that story. So how am I going to get through this? And don't even get me started on the men's section. Jeez. I mean, I picked the bi-coastal IPA for a reason here. Okay.
Wow, it's a sign.
All right. I'm not gay, but $20 is $20. All right. 1790. Queen Louise of Prussia was considered to be the most beautiful woman in Europe during the Gregorian era, when all that badass fucking chanting came out. Oh no, this is Georgian. Sorry. Georgian, not Gregorian. Strike that.
Oh, man.
This is a little bit of an unhinged episode.
Else is enough of a nerd to have found that as humorous as I do.
Dude, I love some fucking Gregorian chants, but this is Georgian, so I'm a little bummed.
I used to terrorize people on the job site because I would listen to Gregorian chant in the morning on my job site radio.
Hell yeah.
And we were there before everybody else, so they would have to listen to it as they came in, and then slowly it would just shut off, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I knew you would
I
understand.
I like Gloria chant.
Yeah, me too. I do. It's weird, but I like it. Okay, so sorry. Queen Louise, Georgian era, most beautiful woman in Europe. Beauty was synonymous with proportion, which is also a 4chan thing. This is when 4chan first started. Beautiful woman was neither too tall nor too short, nor too thin nor too plump. So it was kind of like moderation. But they wanted a long neck, and they actually wanted the large breasts now. 300 years prior, they didn't want large breasts. They were taping them down. Now they want the large breasts and a tapered waist, but they still wanted the prominent nose and small lips that was in favor in ancient Greece. They also preferred a round face with a slight double chin. So, and I know there's some stuff in the men's section where a plump man meant they had wealth to overeat, basically. So it meant they were more powerful than other men.
Yes.
1880, the Victorian era, Mike's favorite era of novels outside of Dune.
I do like it. Aside from
yes.
Dune. Yeah.
Yes. Men wanted women in the role of the damsel in distress. Women who needed to rely on strong men. So women were expected to be feminine, delicate, and even sickly, which just sounds like predatory whatever. Predatory dating. During the 1800s, women desired an S-shaped silhouette, and they had tight corsets that accentuated the waist and lifted the breasts, and they wore dresses with layers upon layers that gave the illusion of a larger and more exaggerated posterior. Due to their incredibly tight corsets, it was difficult for the women to breathe, which made fainting spells a common occurrence, and that kind of led to the idea that frailty was a trait of beautiful women because they would faint. They'd cinch themselves so tight they couldn't breathe and then pass out. Surprise, surprise. And most of them did not wear any makeup. They wore, is it rouge? Rouge and eyeliner. And emaciation to try to contribute to the look of emaciation and illness that were considered to be attractive for women. So if you were on death's door in the cancer ward, not that they had that in 1880, but if they did, that's where all the men would be.
Oh, my. So, deeper into that, as a part of the whaling industry, they would gut the whales and get their bones, and that's what they would make their corsets, and then, of course, their undercarriages, because these layered dresses were extraordinarily heavy.
Yes.
And they would have to build a whale bone structure and belt it around their waist to hold the dress off of them so they didn't fall, and that's where the big ass, the big ass dress, that's all whalebone holding everything up.
I always thought it was steel.
In a way. But it became steel as manufacturing, like the Industrial Revolution, allowed for thinner, stronger pieces of metal. But the early period of that style, steel manufacturing wasn't at the stage yet where they can make like really light, thin steel that would be strong. So they had to use whale. That was like the plastic of the 19th century.
Yes.
So,
and whale oil also lit most of the streets and homes of the era as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, whale production. Well, that's what Moby Dick. That's why Moby Dick became so famous, right? Like whaling was a huge industry. So, very fascinating stuff with that. And that, like I say, because of the weight and the warmth of their dresses, it exacerbated the tightness of their corsets, and it was just a fucking disaster. You know, just a disaster.
Yeah.
And they all wanted small feet, so they wore too small of shoes, and they're tippy, and just a mess.
Not as bad as the Chinese feet binding, though, but
no. They're not trying to deform their foot. They're just trying to make it look small.
Yes. All right, the 1920s, so 1880 to 1920. I'm sure there's a lot more subtleties in the intervening years, but this is kind of a high-level overview of changing beauty standards. So in 1920, they didn't want the femininity of the Victorian era anymore, and androgyny was all the rage. So if you've seen the, Baz Luhrmann, Great Gatsby, the tennis player, and even her cousin that Leonardo DiCaprio's character is obsessed with, that Gatsby's obsessed with, they're a little bit more androgynous. I mean, in the movie, they're
flapper girls.
They're still, they're flappers. They're very feminine, but they've got the shorter hair, right? They're not necessarily highlighting their asses, things like that. So curves were no longer in vogue. Women aimed to maintain a slender figure and wore loose, shapeless dresses that understated and hid natural curves. And some radical women began wearing pants. And they were arrested. Some of them were arrested for cross-dressing. And women began cutting their hair short, which was offensive to both men and women of older generations. And they had just won the right to vote, at least in America. And so they were trying to downplay the differences between men and women, which led to a lot of the, flapper girl thing. Then we got the 1950s. The world really changed. They had the Great Depression and World War II. Women in the 1940s had to make do with what they had. And there was even a story of the flower manufacturers who found out that the women were using the flour sacks to make dresses, and they started printing floral designs on the flour sacks. I don't know if you heard that.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
That's similar to ladies drawing black lines on the backs of their legs.
Oh, yeah.
To make it look like they had nylons.
Yes. So women, because of rationing, women would use eyebrow pencils to draw seams at the back of their legs, which is what you just said, to make it look like they were wearing nylons. They began making alterations on men's suits to repurpose them into dresses, which kind of is where the padded shoulders came from for women. But in the 50s, the economy was booming, and the beauty industry took off like never before. And cosmetics were available at affordable prices to women of almost every class. And so it created the societal expectation for women to keep up appearances and always look their best. Full lips with bright red lipstick were the new trend, and very big hairstyles. The beehive is the big one from that era. And they started gaining more weight because the food was no longer being rationed. The hourglass figure became the most desirable shape, which brought about the repopularization of corsets. And plus-size women were not ideal of the time, at least not what we would consider today to be plus-sized. They still wanted the thin arms and legs as well as the tiny waist, but they wanted large breasts and round hips. By today's standards, the ideal woman from the 50s was still quite thin. And there was, I saw one too where it was, I think Homer Simpson was standing on a scale and he weighed like 260. And the little sub-caption from somebody online was, this was considered morbidly obese in like 1990.
Yep.
Any questions on the females, Mike?
No. You missed Peter Paul Rubens. That would have been nice to discuss.
Well, enlighten me, Mike.
Well, Peter Paul Rubens was a Renaissance artist, and he was not in Italy. He was in like Spain and France mostly. And he painted many pictures, almost all of which had naked angel women. And these women were Rubenesque, which is the term based on his name. And they were extraordinarily rotund women. Like morbidly obese by modern standards.
Okay.
And they would be the Valkyries, coming in, or pirates fighting, and all these semi-pornographic depictions of these rotund women. And Rubens himself his self-portraits made him look like a very large fellow himself. So that very large lady beauty standard was very much alive during the struggles of that era.
Sure. Real quick, I do have some notes on the 60s, 1960s. The women were willowy, thin, long, slim legs, and kind of more adolescent looking. The 1980s, they were athletic, tall, toned arms, a little curvy still. 1990s, waifish, extremely thin, translucent skin, and androgynous. And then 2000s to today, kind of a flat stomach, healthy, skinny, so not ribs poking through, but healthy, skinny, large breasts and butt, and thigh gap, which is a hell of a thing.
Yes, thigh gap with a huge ass.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yes. Well, Photoshop.
Somehow.
All right, I think the amount of cigar that I have left, I'm going to switch to my summarization notes for the men.
I'm sure that all the people listening will be so heartbroken not to hear about hard-throbbing cocks and how desirable they've been throughout history.
Yes. My Roman friend, biggest dickus.
Hell yeah.
Why are you laughing? I'm just kidding. That's an actual line. Both of those are actual lines from the Monty Python film, which you should watch if you have not. Okay, so men, we've got 6th century BCE, ancient Greece. There's a Kouros statue that depicts a youthful, athletic, and lean men. I guess there's a whole series of them, which embodies both moral and physical perfection. Moderate musculature was preferred, and here's the important bit, small genitalia symbolized civilization and restraint. So if you had a smaller member, you're more civilized and more restrained.
Yes, that's what we tell the ladies.
Yes, and nowadays, if you have a smaller member, you have a lifted truck. Okay, so ancient Greece, 500 to 300 BCE. The ideal male was muscular, thin-waisted, lean, which was reflective of the gods and athletes. And in the Renaissance period, men were expected to be well-groomed, physically fit, and fashionable. Personal hygiene and skincare were essential to maintaining high social status. And we've got that's the ancient Renaissance, not the Renaissance that you and I would first think of. We've got the medieval period. Religious ideals shifted focus from physical perfection to spiritual beauty. The body was a vessel for the soul, and nudity was often seen as shameful. Fucking God coming in here and ruining all of our nudie stuff, our smut films.
Asshole.
Damn. If he doesn't want us to be naked, why do you make us look so good naked? That's what I want to say. It's my question.
God's a prude.
Has to be. God probably wears one of those whalebone ass lift dresses. I don't know.
I'm going to guess that God looks a lot like J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, he probably looks a lot like
Hoover too.
He probably looks a lot like Elon Musk before he got the hair plugs.
Nice.
All right, so the Renaissance that you and I would think of, 1400 to 1700. Inspired by the classical antiquity, men were encouraged to have a well-proportioned muscular body. And what we have as proof of that is Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, which everybody knows, the man, in the circle with his little dick out, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The 1870s, a plump physique was considered attractive, symbolizing upper-class status and the ability to afford ample food, which we briefly mentioned during the women's section. The 1930s, Harvard psychologist William H. Sheldon identified the mesomorph, muscular medium build, as the ideal male body type. The 1950s is bringing us to kind of the American Psycho, which is the exec bod. Broad shoulders, tall stature, and a small waist. That's what everybody wanted in the 1950s. The 1980s, the ideal male was athletic, toned, and fit. Fitness culture was booming, and bodybuilding gained popularity. Think Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, any of those other... I don't think Bruce Willis was ever that. I mean, he was pretty muscly in Fifth Element, but he wasn't like Sylvester Stallone muscle level.
No, he wasn't Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, that is for sure. In the 1990s, the modern ideal is lean but muscular, visible abs and well-defined features. And I guess plastic surgery and steroid use has increased, so it's led to a little bit more kind of what I would call artificial features. And that's about that. But I think the most important thing for men to remember is if you can make her laugh and keep her laughing, body type doesn't matter a whole lot. I would hope. I don't know.
It helps if you make a lot more money than her.
That is also true.
Doesn't need to be a lot. It just needs to be more than her.
Yep. But the more the merrier, right?
Well, sure. I mean, everybody's seen the crazy internet videos of the morbidly obese woman in a tank top saying she demands a man making $500,000 a year. And she looks like a fucking troll.
Yeah, that was on a different podcast where they actually make fun of women like that, but they still get women to come on somehow.
Yeah. We're not going to mention the name of the podcast.
And all we want to do is have people smoke cigars, and we can't hardly get women. We got a woman coming up though, so that's exciting. But
it is. Yeah, they had Gorgon the Destroyer on that episode or on that podcast. That was hilarious. Yeah, that trans woman. But they've also had like non-trans women who are troll-like, who have these insane expectations.
See, to me, like the Gorgon thing is like it defies all gender, and I'm just like, what?
Dude, it's like,
right?
That bitch has got confidence. I don't understand. Like, I'm not from Miami, and that's where all these people are, is Miami. Sure. But it is crazy that there's these people who live who have this self-delusion.
Yeah.
And somehow it continues, right? Like, so people are still feeding into that. So, like, I don't know who is, but they're getting feedback, positive feedback. Nobody can stay that way forever if they're not getting reinforcement.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it, I think, has to do with kind of like, I don't know if it's these incels necessarily, or what do they call it now? Not an incel, but, what's the word, man? When you're You're like spending money on these bitches like OnlyFans and shit.
Oh, simping.
Simping.
Yeah, simping.
That's it. Simping. Like all these simps.
But who would simp
whatever,
for
like,
Gargon the Destroyer when there's hot ladies out there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Like,
who would look up like foot fetish porn when there's perfectly normal like vaginal porn out there?
Wow.
I'm not trying to kink shame.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to kink shame. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of, you're getting almost into that, why does Rule 42 or 24 exist or whatever it is? Rule 13,
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, Rule 24. You're not wrong. Like, I guess there are probably like several thousand people worldwide who want to bang Gorgon the Destroyer. So now, because of the internet, all 1,000 of them are interacting with her. Yeah. So now it's delusion time, Well, yeah, and there's probably more than that would actually want to bang her, but there's only, 1,000 or so that actually will send her money and try to actively engage in that. Right. Even if it's 10,000, I mean, there's a lot of people on the earth.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever it is, but it's kind of the same thing with voting or anything else, is there's a lot of people that would vote a certain way if they actually went out to vote, but they don't do it.
Sure.
It's like there's a lot of people that would love to have, Belle Daphne's bathwater. But only a certain percentage of that actually bought it.
Yeah, which is something else, for sure. That's something else.
Right. Well, and there's a whole internet market for worn women's panties and peed in panties. Like they'll send you.
Oh, that's been
panties.
around forever.
I know it's been around forever. I'm just saying, it's fucking weird. Is what I'm saying.
Definitely, dude. It's definitely weird. They had panty machines in Japan. I remember that.
Okay.
On the internet.
Yeah.
Where they have vending machines and you buy panties with the model who supposedly wore them.
Yeah. It was Carl.
Yeah. Yeah, it was made in a factory. Nobody wore them.
Maybe not, yeah. They put them on a dog and had to chase the dog around for a little bit so you can smell a little bit of musk. I don't know, what?
I'm pretty sure they got sprayed with a spritzer that was designed by some fucking chemist and then put in a package. But an assembly line in communist China.
Yeah, I mean, whatever's cheapest, right? Cheapest and quickest. But I don't know. Fuck. As an atheist, I'm sure glad God didn't make me attracted to fucking piss and feet.
Right?
No kink shaming. Right. If that's you, that's you. It's just not me. It's not me.
I'm not trying to attack anybody. But
no, I'm not. I'm not trying to attack anybody weird, either. Dude. But how would you even Well, of course, this is different because I'm married. So what? I ordered some fucking bathwater from this e-girl or whatever the fuck, and how do you even explain that? How do you begin to explain that? I mean, that's assuming that these people that are buying it are married, which they're clearly not.
I mean, they're probably not. But how do you explain that to yourself?
I mean, you do you. I mean, we did a whole episode on life-size My Little Pony fuck dolls. So, who are we to judge?
Well, that's another one where it's how have you allowed yourself to get to this place? Yeah, there's a lot of stop gaps between point A and point C, right? You're not. This is a continuum.
One would think.
And you blew past every stop sign on the way there.
Yep. The signal is out. Full steam ahead.
I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I don't get the coomers at all. That's guys who are attracted to video game characters.
Sure.
I just don't. I mean, I get that more than being attracted to Gorgon the Destroyer, to be perfectly honest.
Well, yeah, to be fair. But, to be fair, though, most of my characters, if I have a game where it's a third-person view, then I'm always picking a female character. But if it's a first-person view, it's usually a male character.
I usually pick whatever character has better in-game mechanics. So if there's a barter system and there's a perk that allows you to get more percentage with the opposite sex, I'll just pick whatever is the opposite of the majority of the vendors.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. I'm not that fucking character. I'm playing a game to
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm playing a game, but so I've been playing a lot of Warhammer Darktide, and I've got two female characters and two male characters because there's 4 different classes, and the one class only has men, and the one class I wanted to do a character from a book, so it was a man, and the other 2 are female, but it's all first person stuff, so it doesn't really matter. But then I used to play Aliens Fireteam, and my buddies wanted to play that recently, and I only have one character, and there's 5 classes, but I haven't played it as much, so I only have the one. And they're like, God damn. And I'm like, holy fuck. Like, cause it's third person, or it's third person in some of the areas, and I think first person in the other areas. But I have a female, whatever the fuck, and she's wearing like this like super tight fucking spandex thing. And I'm like, God damn, I could bounce like, all the quarters in the U.S. Treasury off of her ass. And it wouldn't, and they were asking me like what cosmetic do you have? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like it was like some promotional thing because I don't pay for DLC shit and stuff. But, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it's definitely the male gaze, right? So a lot of men play these like hypersexualized female characters in video games under the auspices
They had a point. They had a point. I mean, they went too far with it, but that whole line of reasoning, it does have, they have a point for sure.
Yeah.
They're not lying.
Yeah. But, it's like if I'm going to play a video game and you let me pick whatever the fuck I want to be and gender doesn't matter, like, am I going to stare at a dude's ass for the whole game or am I going to stare at like a woman's ass the whole game?
Oh, for sure. I only play Skyrim, so.
Yeah, I guess the interesting statistic would be like what percentage of the men that are gamers that play female characters actually role play in the game as females, or do they just have a female character for eye candy and then make all their in-game decisions as like a man would? You know what I mean?
I'm going to guess 100%. Well, not 100%. 90%.
Probably. I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm just saying, it would, in terms of that sort of thing, it would be interesting. Like how many of them actually wish to be women versus how many of them would just rather look at a female figure on their screen versus a male figure? There's nothing wrong with either one. People get so worked up about video games sometimes.
Oh, yeah. People
for no reason. For no reason.
They're passionate. That's okay. They gotta care about something. They don't want to think about the 2030 agenda. So
well, neither do I.
Occupy their time.
I'm gonna do 2030 shots of vodka to forget the 2030 agenda. Tell you that right now.
Yeah. So I did put my cigar out. I had about 1.25 inches left, maybe.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. It's getting a little.
The end just fell apart.
I've been getting so many Scooby snacks. It's not even funny. But it wasn't until the last third.
Yep, mine as well. I cut it a little less, and it became less of a problem.
Yep.
And it did get a little hot at the end, like a little burnt. Yeah. Possibly my fault, but this is the nature of a very long, thin flavored cigar.
Yeah.
So
I feel like if this were a Robusto size and gauge, it would be much better.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. 100%.
Well, I gave this one a 2.5.
I'm giving this one a 3, just like the last one. It's not like incredible, but it is incredible for the price, because a 3 for a cigar that's less than $1, that's pretty good. I would totally bring this out into the boat, crappie fishing, and just throw the fucker in the water when I started catching fish and not be hurt, but it's also good,
I gave the Waking Dream a 3.5 and I gave this one a 2.5. And I explained earlier that I have kind of an aversion to the artificial chocolate flavor, which I was not really a fan of throughout. Kind of the last little bit of end here kind of also swayed me a bit. So between the two, I'd rather have the Waking Dream versus the Nightcap.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're about equal. That Waking Dream did have a very interesting flavor. Like that perfume was unique.
It was very unique. That. Yep.
Yeah. I would almost be inclined to bring that other one up. Maybe I'm going to bring... maybe I'll lower this one down to a 2.75 because, like I say, it's still good. Like I would still smoke it again.
Yeah, I wouldn't say no to this one for sure, but I don't think I would choose this over the Waking Dream. Is all because because of the artificial chocolate flavor is not a personal favorite of mine. And if you're okay with that and you like that sort of thing, then you might like this one better than the Waking Dream. It's just artificial chocolate and I have a history. We go way back.
We go back. So
yes, so that's it. I guess the lesson here is don't judge a cigar by its wrapper or label. Because we thought the Tatianas were going to be absolute trash. And that hasn't really been true. I know I gave this one a 2.5 and Mike gave it a 2.75. But in the grand scheme of affordability and cost for smoke, I mean, this is almost an hour-long episode. So you can smoke this thing for almost an hour for like $1 or $2 or something. So if you were getting...
They're like less than $1. Yeah, so, less than $1.
Oh, sure. So if you're getting like $6 a day from the Economic Forum, you can afford, I don't know, 2 or 3 of these a day, then plus your food and lodging and Disney Plus subscription and Tesla subscription. Maybe one of these. I don't know. Depends on how much everything works out at the end. But I think, for the price per smoke time and enjoyability, if you can smoke 2/3 of it or more than 2/3 of it before it gets kind of bitter and whatever, yeah, it's a good cheap cigar to just have to be able to smoke. Pick a flavor you like. And
the value proposition is insane.
Yeah.
The value proposition is insane.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for listening. Catch us next week.
Be safe. Have fun.